Hey everyone, welcome to the very first and hopefully only, but we'll see how this one goes, Atlassian for Startups. We're going to be covering a lot of interesting information today, and primarily I'm going to show you how to use Jira, Jira Product Discovery, Confluence, Loom, Bitbucket, and Compass. And we're going to show you using a real example how all of these things are intertwined and how you can use them all in a very collaborative nature. And so this is something that I don't think has ever been done before, where you see all the different tools and how they all integrate. But I'm very, very excited to be bringing this to y'all because it's just super exciting. Because most people don't just buy Jira, right? There's a collection now, right? Atlassian likes to focus on their collections, and there's essentially all these tools that are really interoperable, right? They're designed to work together. And I don't think a lot of companies out there usually take advantage of like the ability to play with them together, right? And so this is going to be an interesting class where we're going to show you how this all comes together. Now, this is technically Atlassian for Startups, and all this means is that there's a program out there. It's called Atlassian for Startups that is completely free for 1 year. You get a bunch of different seats and licenses, and a lot of information, a lot of different products for free for a year if you are a qualifying startup. And Atlassian has some rules on what that actually means. But for you, the main takeaway is how do these tools work together, right? That's what you're going to get. Whether you're at Atlassian for Startup or not, everything we're going to show you today is going to apply to you because we're essentially going to show you how to just use Jira Product Discovery with Jira and Confluence and Loom and Bitbucket and Compass and the like. And we're just going to show you how it all works together, whether you pay for it or whether you not pay for it. It's all going to be the same effect. Now, special shout out to my good friends over at Titan Apps for sponsoring this episode and making this possible. We have a QR code here in the top right corner, which I can't reach that far up, but if you want to scan that QR code and check out Titan Apps, I'm really, really appreciative of that. Couple of friendly reminders though, the session is being recorded and will be available on this YouTube channel a little bit after. And so make sure that you hit the subscribe button. Slides are not going to be available. We are going to be in the tools, not just in one tool, but we're going to be in a lot of different tools today. And we're going to be having a lot of fun. And I want you to have some patience with me. I have been practicing this a lot over the last, since Thanksgiving. And so it should be pretty polished, but there is one little piece that I just couldn't get. And hopefully within an hour, I'm able to give you everything right and have everything work. But we'll see how good my demo offerings are to the demo gods went today and this morning. But I would suspect that not everything's going to work perfectly, but I'm going to try my best to give you as much value as possible. Make sure you hit the subscribe button to this channel. If you're coming in from my previous sessions, you know how much I love folks subscribing to the channel. No JSM, stay tuned. We may have a little bonus, but unfortunately, Jira Service Management is not part of the Atlassian for Startups package. And in fact, let me just pull it up for you guys so you can see it. There is an Atlassian for Startups. This is, again, a special program that if you are a startup, there is a very special opportunity to get the products that we're going to be covering today for free for 12 months. You do need to meet the qualifications. There's some qualifications here that you should be aware of and who's eligible. Basically, you must not be an Atlassian customer today. You have some VC funding and you have not raised more than $10 million in external funding. So as long as you meet that, you basically get a lot of products for free for a year for up to 50 users, except JPD, which only gives you 10, but that's not a big deal breaker because you don't really need a whole lot of seats in JPD. But this is who runs this team. Peggy Graham, who might be in the chat here, is one of our folks, and then Philip Braddock, who's been a longtime fan of the Jira Life, which is one of the podcasts that I run. He's now the head of Atlassian for Startups. So they asked me like 9 months ago if I could do some training for them to help people kind of be more familiar with how to use the tools. And so this is why this training exists. And so we're gonna have some fun with this one, and we're gonna show you everything. Now, again, special thank you to our sponsor here, Titan Apps, for making this possible. Check out their list of their applications. We're going to drop a link here in the chat here so that you can follow along with them. But essentially, the Titan apps or the apps from Titan Apps, there's a great collection of marketplace apps that they make, and Smart Checklist is going to be one of the big ones that they make. So I'm just going to go to Titan Apps so that you can see the full list. I'm going to drop this one in the chat. Just going to go and make sure that I'm inside of their section here, just so that you have them all. But if you can check them out, this would be super awesome and super helpful for them because they did help me make this possible and make this entire episode possible. So shout out to Titan Apps for their support and for bringing this training to you all for free. Okay, a little bit about me. I have a ACP 120, ACP 620, ACP 520, working on the 420. I have a bunch of ACAs that cover Confluence and that cover JSM and that cover Jira. I have a couple of engineering degrees, one in computer engineering, a master's in systems engineering. I run this YouTube channel, and then I am also the host of the Jira Life, or a co-host of the Jira Life. And so definitely check out the Jira Life and check out all the other things that I have available here, which we'll come back to in a little bit. Now, I wanted to get to something very important here. This is where we're going to be learning today, right? This is where this class is super interesting, super special. Ronnie wants to know if I'm going to be taking the 220 soon. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to take the 220, but probably. I feel pretty confident, and when I took the ACAs that it was doable, but we'll see. Also, you're always hovering over Alex in the background. Rodney, you should know, is like my best friend, so he can hover as much as he wants. He's just here to troll me and throw me off my game, so I make as many mistakes as possible. But it wouldn't be a Rodney. In fact, I love Rodney so much that I keep him in my office every single day. There's the mystery of Rodney, in case anybody cared. Okay, so what are we going to learn today, right? So again, this is, I don't know that I've ever seen this done before, so I'm actually kind of excited. But we're going to start at the top, right? We're going to start with an idea. We're going to have an intake from Jira Product Discovery, and we're going to show you how to nurture that. We're going to talk about some prioritization and validation and what you can do within Jira Product Discovery. Then I'm going to show you some documentation with Confluence and how all of that works together. And then I'm going to mix Loom into the mix as well to kind of show you how both of those play together. We're going to go into planning with Jira Plans, because Atlassian for Startups gives you all of the premium versions of all their software. We're able to take advantage of all the functionality across all the different tools. And so that's going to be great there. And then once we have our plan, we're going to go into Jira and we're going to track our work. And then as we're tracking our work, we're going to go into Bitbucket to show how to do the development aspect of it. And then finally, we're going to wrap things up with a couple of asynchronous tips from Loom and Compass. And I'm going to hope and keep my fingers crossed that 50 minutes is enough time. I don't know. I didn't really train this one. For full disclosure, I do have a 1 hour, for full disclosure, I built a course that is going to be available to you all here. And let me pull it up real quick. I should have probably had this open already, but I have a school community where I have uploaded this particular course. It is an in-depth version of this. It covers everything in detail, all the setups for Jira Product Discovery, for Jira, for JSM, for Confluence, for Loom. So I'm walking you through all the configurations, Bitbucket, and then we walk through the demo in depth without rushing through it, right? So right now I'm going to rush through a lot of stuff, and we're going to just give you some highlights, some really high level stuff. But if you wanted to see this all in action and like actually take your time, I do believe, I don't have the final count, but it's going to be between 5 to 6, maybe 7 hours worth of content. It took me forever to build this thing. And so if you want to get this, it is going to be available for 100 USD. And all you need to do is become a free member of my channel, of my school community here. So I'm going to drop the link here. And so join the school community. It's completely free to join. If you join it, you're going to get free access to everything from the Atlassian Builder Summit, including the book of the Big Book of Atlassian. So you're going to have all of that for free. But if you pay the $100, you will then get the 6 or 7 hour. I need to get the final count. My beautiful, amazing wife was up until 2 a.m. yesterday or this morning uploading this and getting it ready. So I don't have the final count, but I would suspect, just given how much time it took me to record it, it's going to be about 6 hours, I think, worth of content. But everything that you need is all in here, in depth, like all the tips, all the tricks are going to be available. So yeah, Udemy, this is the $100 is the cheap code. This course is going to be available for non folks for a very, very expensive price of $500, because it took me forever to create, and it's probably the most comprehensive thing you're going to see on how these Atlassian tools come together. So with that all out of the way, we are going to jump into Jira, and let's actually walk through all the examples. We're going to start off with Jira Product Discovery, and I'm going to show you what that looks like over there. So if you've never used Jira Product Discovery, you're in for a treat. Jira Product Discovery is a really cool tool. It's a tool that I don't know why it always exists, right? Like, it's one of these tools where technically you can get away without it, but it's a tool that's valuable enough that it gives you a good amount of extra context that Jira and JSM simply don't. And so it's worth investing and looking into Jira Product Discovery. It's free for up to 3 users if you're not part of the Atlassian for Startups program. And it gives you, again, a lot of abilities to add context and to nurture ideas, because let's face it, not every idea that we have is a good idea. And so this Jira Product Discovery is going to give us some more contextual, much more subjective fields that are just simply not available inside of Jira today, or even JSM. And so we're going to start off with Jira Product Discovery. Again, this is a separate product, a separate purchase. You do get 3 people for free. You get unlimited collaborators. So that means that anybody in your organization can collaborate and help fill out the information, but only 3 people can actually come up with the idea. Or if you open it up, there's a way for you to open up the idea creation to collaborators. And so really only the licensed user is needed to create a space inside of Jira. But other than that, like, anybody can submit ideas and anybody can contribute to the idea. So again, it doesn't matter how many licenses you have, because it's usually open to everybody in your company. So in the chat, give me a +1. Do you currently use Jira Product Discovery? I'm really curious. And it's one of like Atlassian's newer children. And so it's not the one that gets all the love, but I'm just kind of curious, how many of you are currently using Jira Product Discovery? Give me a +1 if you're using it. Give me a +2 if you have never used Jira Product Discovery before in your life. And you're like, what is this? Like, I have never seen it. So let me know in the chat. And if you're watching the replay, let me know in the comment section as well. All right. So inside of Jira Product Discovery, we kick things off with an idea. And this is before we go into Jira, right? The whole premise of Jira Product Discovery is that we are coming up with something, like, it's still magical. We're still thinking about it, but we know we want to do something, right? But we don't know what that is yet. And it's just some thought that entered somebody's head, and we want to capture it, because eventually we want to move it to Jira, and eventually we want to build a product, or we want to build a service, or we want to build something tangible that we can then sell. But we don't always know if it's a good idea or not. And that's what Jira Product Discovery is going to be here to help us figure out, because ideas are cheap and ideas are free, but only the really, really good ones are going to make us a lot of money, or help us build a business, right? And so most people, when they're watching this, like, you're already established in Jira. And a lot of people make the mistake of testing the waters with ideas in Jira, only to get frustrated because not everything pans out, and you end up not doing the right research, and like, it was not a good idea. But that's because you didn't appropriately go through the ideation phase, which is really what you're supposed to do in Jira Product Discovery. So we're going to try to kind of keep you in Jira Product Discovery, because this is where you're going to nurture that idea. This is where you're going to water your seed and see if you can actually, get some roots and grow a little stem, to see this idea can actually, grow legs on its own, so that it can eventually make it to Jira. Because again, not every idea is a good idea. And so what makes Jira Product Discovery special is that the views and the fields that are in JPD are designed to do exactly what I just described. And this is kind of where the powerful stuff starts to come in. And so I already have an idea here, and I'm going to just kind of show you what I have here and give you some of the benefits. So I have an idea to use AI to auto summarize customer requests to reduce agent handling time. Okay. And so now that I have this idea, some of the common or familiar fields that you're used to, like assignee and reporter, those are going to exist here. But as I scroll to the right, this is where things start to get interesting. The fields in Jira Product Discovery are not like the ones in Jira. And in fact, these allow me to vote and like create more subjective data, right? And so I can look at my business value. My field here is how much value is this idea going to bring to the business? Because it's very important, folks, right? Whenever we're going to rephrase that, whenever we're going to spend calories and resources on building something, we want to make sure that there's a business around it, right? The whole "if you build it and they come" is not really true these days. And so you want to make sure that whatever it is you're coming up with, that there's a high number of business value. And so this field here allows you to look at all your different ideas and go, yep, this is a high business value, or go, no, you know what, there's not a whole lot of business value here, right? We've done some market research, we're looking at our competitors, and it just doesn't make sense. And so you can basically start to grade your different ideas based on business value. Now, this is a custom field, and what I like and hate about Jira Product Discovery is that it's a team managed project. So it's very, very easy to add fields like this. And so if I wanted to add a new field, all I simply need to do is click on my fields here. And then I can just simply click and create a new field. And then I give it a name. And so this is going to be Rodney's field. And then the most important part is you pick the type. And as you can see here, you have a lot of different types. So you can do checkboxes, you can do a date, you can do hyperlinks, multi-selects. But the cool thing starts happening here in the rating, in the reactions, in the sliders, or even in the custom formulas, which are not something that you get in Jira or Jira Product Discovery. So let's just do reactions, and we're going to click create. And when I have that, you can see that I now have a field where I can give some emojis, right? So I can say, yes, this is pure fire. We like it. Or go, yes, this one's awesome. Or we can go, not quite sure. And then we also have some additional ones where you can basically pull in a lot of different emojis, right? And so this, again, adds a little bit of playfulness, but a little bit of subjectivity to the ideas so that folks can come in and vote with their emojis, right? Because a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, emojis are worth like 10,000 words, right? And so this is a great way to essentially add extra context so you can see how the team feels, right? Because no one individual should ultimately make the call, but you can build facts and data to help nurture that idea and help see which ideas are worth it and which ideas are not worth it. And so again, this is what I love about Jira Product Discovery is we get that kind of stuff. We have date fields, which are way easier to use inside of Jira Product Discovery because you don't always need to know a date. You can go for a month, right? This is kind of cool. So you can just say, hey, we want to do this, but it's like a November thing, or maybe it's going to be an August 2026 thing, or maybe it's a quarter thing, right? Maybe we're shooting for Q4 of 2026, right? You don't get this kind of information inside of Jira and Jira Service Management, but you do get to see it here. So you can start shooting targets, right? You can start saying, okay, we're not quite sure yet, but we know we're targeting for the Q4, we're targeting it for Q3, right? And so you get this kind of data inside of Jira Product Discovery, which I think is really cool. And then we have these impact scores. So these impact scores are sliders, so we can actually get very granular. And so you have fields that are super, super granular that allow us to really, really hone in and determine, okay, this is something very, very important or not. And then again, we have more of these rating ones, and then we have our regular statuses that we truly love and get to know. We have comments, so you can add comments here, and you can see the comments just like you would inside of Jira software. And then we have insights. And then, folks, this is the game changer. This is where ideas come to really fruition, right? And so with insights, you can essentially install an extension for Chrome, or you can install a Slack or Teams app, and essentially you can start like fielding inspiration, justifications, concrete evidence to why this idea is good. And what I've done here is I have actually created a Loom, right? And so I went into Loom and I was talking about my idea because, again, a picture's worth 1,000 words, an emoji's worth 10,000, but a video is worth like 100 million, right? And so you can embed your looms naturally, right? So it's very intuitive for me to express my tone, my facial expressions, frustrations, anger, right? Excitement, joy. You can express this so much easier than you can over text, and a comment will never, ever justify it, right? So I can very easily record a loom here and then embed this loom inside of my idea as an insight, right? And so I can have that nested very nicely. And I can also go and create Confluence pages with information, right? And so I can add pictures and images and links to external research. I can embed looms in here as well. And I can create a Confluence page that has a bunch of information. As you can see here, I have another loom, and I have a loom that is summarized, right? And so with the power of AI, I can take my looms and I can tell Confluence or Jira, whatever tool you're using, and say, hey, can you summarize this loom for me so that I can essentially know what the loom is about? That way, in case I don't want to listen to it or watch it, I can still read about it. And this, my friends, is very powerful stuff here as well. You can nest your pages in Confluence so that you have like an SOP. And this right here is actually very powerful because this document here that you're seeing, these meeting requirements SOP, this was created from the Loom. So I recorded a Loom and I just told it, hey, can you generate this information for me? So when you open up a Loom, there is a generate tab for every single one of your videos, and AI can help you create a how-to guide, You can create a bug report, which we're going to look at a little bit later, pull request descriptions, QA steps, right? It's really, really powerful what you can do here. And all I did was say, hey, take this video that I created, this Loom, and make me an SOP. And it goes and basically structures the entire document for you. Then you just embed it into Confluence, and then you just embed it back into your insight, into your part of discovery, and therefore you add a little bit more context. So very, very powerful stuff here, but you can see how easy and convenient it is to visualize and add all this extra information to Jira Product Discovery. Now, there's a couple more things I want to show you before we get off of Jira Product Discovery and move on to the next tool. But we do have a board view. So if you wanted to group by status, we can do that, or by any other field that is available to you. But if you wanted to look at impact scores, we can do that. If we wanted to do engineering effort, or maybe Ronnie's field, right? If we wanted to see which ones are questionable ones, which ones we're excited about, which ones we're not too sure about, you can group your ideas that way as well. We have a matrix view, so you can cross-reference two different fields. In this particular case, I have my engineering effort going across my x-axis, and I have my y-axis being my impact score, and I can see, okay, which idea scores the highest? That's the one we want to go with, right? And you can visualize that information. And then we have a timeline view, so we can show all of our ideas. Where do they land on the calendar, right? When should we anticipate for things to be done or not done? And we can visualize that here. So that is almost the end of Jira Product Discovery. We're going to show you one last thing, but before we do, I want to just take a look at the chat here because you guys are blowing it up. Sure. So Kaithira says, yes, verily, which is why I'm not entirely awake yet. Okay, so I'm assuming we're too early. Oh, I see gargoyle people. Oh, okay. That's the running comment for Kaithira. Okay, I love the thumb analogy. Yes, the thumbs is good. Arsalan says Jira Product Discovery is a Atlassian child that I've neglected paying attention to. Yeah, a lot of people do neglect JPD, but it's a it's a pretty cool tool. I kind of like it. I wish that it wasn't only company managed, but Atlassian's making a lot of changes there to make this feel more company managed without actually making it company managed. And yeah, so great succinct overview of JPD. Yeah, so that is, if I had explained JPD in 10 minutes, that was it. Okay, one last feature that we get in JPD that makes this all the worth it, and that is when I click on any idea, we have a delivery tab. And in this delivery tab, we can then start linking to work inside of Jira, which is what we're going to move to next. And so in the wonderful world of Jira, we're going to be able to strategize, right? Because this idea, once it enters a state of like, okay, we like the idea, there's business value to the idea, it's not going to cost us 2 arms, 2 legs, and half a kidney to develop, right? From an engineering perspective, it's doable, right? But once we get there, right, once we say, yes, this is the idea we want, we can then either link to an existing work item, or we can create a brand new work item, in which case you're going to be able to track your delivery progress here and be able to see the status of all of the associated work downstream. And so this is a really powerful view to see how all of this work that ultimately has to be created to bring the idea to life, to actually deliver the idea to your customer, we're going to see how all of that comes into play. And you can see it here in the delivery tab, which again is so unique, so special to Jira Product Discovery. If you haven't used Jira Product Discovery, highly, highly, highly recommend you check it out. So that, my friends, is Jira Product Discovery. Give me a +1 if you liked it. Give me a little clap emoji if you thought this was cool. And if you learned anything valuable from Jira Product Discovery, let me know. I'm always curious to see. So in the chat, blow up the chat with your feedback there. Let's move on over to prioritization and validation. And so to do that, I'm actually going to move to Confluence, right? And so in Confluence, this is very, very important because Confluence allows us to, if I can click correctly, Confluence allows us to document our world, right? So Confluence is not just a place for like meeting minutes, but it's a pretty powerful place where we can do a lot of different things. And so one of the things that I've done in my Confluence is that I have a processes folder. I have one for requirements, I have one for meeting notes, and I have one for important decisions as well. But I have a process folder. And inside of this folder, I can then document my processes, the ones that are true to my company. Because trust me when I tell you, nothing is going to run you out of business faster than like having very, 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 very confused individuals in your company. You want people to know what the heck they're doing, and you want them to know where to look up information if they ever need to look it up. And that, my friends, is what Confluence is for. Now, Confluence and Jira go along very, very well. But as you saw earlier, we can also link to Jira We can also link to Jira Product Discovery, and we can link to Loom and create this very interoperable play between the three different tools. And so let me show you a couple of things here inside of my processes that are going to help me with my validation and verification here. Sorry, with my validation and prioritization. And so one of the things that I urge you to do is document your workflows, right? Document inside of Jira Product Discovery, you're going to have statuses, right? To create the work. Well, document that, right? Create your process. Understand, what does it mean when something's in progress? What does it mean when something's done? What does it mean when something's under review, right? All of these things should be documented so that any person looking at any idea inside of Jira Product Discovery goes, yes, that's why we have that. I would also urge you to document your JSM processes. I know it's the same process. I was rushing through this, right? But you want to essentially document your JSM processes. And with the Confluence whiteboard, we're able to document, and people can come in and add little stickies for information. We can draw on these as well. We can add extra text here, right? Like this rocks. And for Rodney, because he loves those emojis, we can say, yep, this right here, you should always be testing, right? And so this adds a little playfulness, but also a little bit of context so that your team can collaborate better, right? Because again, those pictures are worth 1,000 words, but these emojis are worth a lot more. Now we do have a question here: is JPD or Jira only web-based, or is there a Mac OS and Windows app? As far as I know right now, I think these are only web-based. I think Jira might have had a Mac app, but I don't know what happened to it. I've never used it. I always only just ever use the web version, but I do know that Atlassian's coming out with a Mac app and a mobile app for Rovo. So I would assume that maybe in the future they're gonna want to put other things in there, but for right now, Rovo is gonna be the one that where Atlassian's investing in there. It looks like the new JPD made it easier to use. Where is the work being done? Yes, I remember Dan being in JPD like 3 years ago, and the delivery tab wasn't even a thing yet. Like I was like, this is useless. But now they've invested a lot, and it's a really cool product. You can only get the cloud-based tool now. No data. Yeah, so that's right. The Mac app for Jira has end of life. So yeah, so no more Mac apps. But again, I would maybe hold my breath. I think Atlassian might do something in the future, especially since they're investing in a Rovo app. Okay, folks. So yes, so you can use Confluence whiteboards to document stuff, but more importantly, you can use Confluence to document your processes, right? Your actual like written statements of stuff, right? So here I have a definition of ready. It is so important for your team to know and understand, what does ready mean? What does it actually mean to be ready for something, right? And so this is where you can document the stuff so that when you're looking at your ideas, you have some concrete documentation to help you determine, okay, are we actually ready? Like, do we want to do this story? And so that you have that, you can define your priorities, right? So you can put tables in here, and we can always reference Jira and Loom and all the other tools inside of Confluence as well. So very, very important place. Confluence has an amazing place in the world of documentation. And it's not just a wiki anymore, right? With the whiteboards, with databases, with smart links, it's so much more, right? I can embed anything into these things, right? So if I have a video on YouTube that shows you how to do something, right? So let me go to YouTube, and I do believe I have Jira priorities, right? So if I do Jira priorities, I might have a video. Here it is. I'm gonna take this video. Oh boy, that's a old video of mine, and we're gonna just add it here. And when you paste it in, it adds it as a smart link, so you can now natively watch the video from within the Confluence page itself, and then I can just update it, and then everybody can just watch the video here and not have to go and be redirected. It's all in here. And so this is really powerful and really cool as well. Okay, so now we've completed Confluence to a certain degree, and we finished Jira Product Discovery. In the second half, we're going to jump into plans. We're going to move into Jira, because at this point, what we've done is we've taken an idea from Jira Product Discovery, and we said, yes, this is the idea we want to do. We went through our documentation. We went through our definition of ready. We went through our prioritization, and we're like, yes, this is something we want to do. And so naturally you create, I would recommend, if you're going to take full advantage of this, I would recommend you create an initiative. Now, an initiative does require you to manipulate your hierarchy, and it requires you to add new work types. But trust me when I tell you, it's worth it, right? And the reason it is worth it is because initiatives, at my definition, right, are multi-team, multi-month efforts. And when you look at like an initiative versus an epic versus a story, the way I start to decompose things is my initiatives, multiple teams, right? So I'm going to have a UX team, I'm going to have an Android team, I'm going to have the iOS team, I'm going to have a backend team, I'm going to have a web team, right? Multiple teams, multiple months, maybe a quarter, maybe 2 quarters, but ultimately at the initiative level, this is the product, right? This is the thing we're going to ship, right? This is the whole product itself, or maybe the project. Underneath that is going to be the epic. The epic is one team, multiple team members. And so you start breaking down the work, right? Because we went from multiple teams, multiple months to multiple team members, one team, but multiple team members, and then maybe multiple weeks worth of work, right? Because an epic, by definition, is usually a really big story. And then we take those epics and we break them down even further, and we get down to one team member, one like task, one sprint, right? And so now we're very granularly breaking down our work to eventually you end up with like a subtask, which is like one team member, one little thing for like one day, right? And so you start to see the big decomposition of the scope of that work from a really, really big initiative down to that subtask. And the plan is the best place to visualize this. So if I come over to my AI auto summarizer here, you can see that I have my initiative, right? And I have a couple of initiatives, and I'm actually going to collapse this one and we're going to focus on this one here. And so what makes this powerful and special is that I have an initiative right here. AT1 is going to be basically my idea that I brought in from Jira Product Discovery. And we're then going to break that down into projects. Right now, this is normally your epic. I was showing a client or another team how to do this. And so we have some projects here, but we can see that we have epic. So wherever you see this little folder, think of an epic. And I was just trying to prove a point earlier with another team. And what's special and powerful here is that under your initiative, um, Dan says, no subtask. Everything you do is a task. I am not a fan of subtasks, Dan. So I just threw it out there because it's an option that's there. But yeah, I'm kind of with you on this one. I don't necessarily go down to the subtask level. I like to treat the subtask as a checklist, but instead of the subtask, because sometimes the checklist is smart, I would highly recommend you check out Smart Checklist by Titan Apps. Or you can scan the QR code up there, or just check them out on the Atlassian Marketplace, because sometimes it is important to have like a subtask type of work where it's like a little checklist of things that you got to do, but you don't always want to add a workflow or statuses to them. And then you also have the restrictions that you have to associate them to a story or a task or whatnot. So if you don't care for that, then I would highly recommend you check out Smart Checklist, right? Because this app here is going to work a lot better for you, right? And it's going to give you a lot of the flexibility that you're looking for in a subtask, minus the requirements of building that subtask. So definitely check out Smart Checklist by Titan Apps. Okay, so back to this. One of the reasons why I like plans, right, is because we can determine that initiative to be multi-team, right? But then every individual team is going to get their own epic that they're going to be responsible for. And this, my friends, is where I like about this, right? Because underneath this AT item, I can then show you all of the different epics that are going to be associated by the different teams. And you can see which team has ownership because each key is slightly different, right? So the Android team is going to have these two epics. My user experience team is going to have this epic. My iOS team is going to have this epic. And they are all nested underneath that initiative. And this is very powerful. And then taking that step further, the stories underneath that that epic can then basically be the stories that are actually going to be done by the individual team, that are going to be planned into your sprint, that are then going to be estimated, which is what we're going to do next. But as you can see here, inside of my plan, I can visualize all the different levels of the work. I can set data, right? So I can set the priority. Let me shrink this down. I can set the priority. I can set the start date. I can set the due date. I can work and manipulate the status. I can see the overall progress. I can see who's the assignee. And then we have any other custom field that you can bring in, and you can bring in your components. You can bring in your releases. So there's a lot of extra metadata that we can add to our plan to visualize the work. But the most important part, the most important reason why I like the plan is because it allows us to rank our information. And what I mean by that is if I look at this AT1 and I'm looking at just the epics, right? I can move epics around. So if I were to grab this UT3 and say, this is very important, let's move it up. And then I can grab this AT2 and I can go, you know what? This is not as important. Let's move it down. And so when I do that, I can save my changes and publish the rank, which is what actually changed. And when I save those changes, Jira is going to remember the positioning of this work. And this is going to be very, very important, right? We're going to do that in just a second here and show you. Yeah, you know what? I'm becoming an expert in this YouTube business. So just subtly throwing in my sponsors is always a great way to do it. And by the way, guys, if you have made it this far and you haven't subscribed to the channel, that would be a good time to hit that subscribe button as well. Okay. So now that you know the ranking, right? This is one of the reasons why I like to do this, right? Because in one location, in one single location, I can organize and orchestrate the priorities of not just one team, but all of my teams. And so I can essentially, if I go to the timeline view, also link all of the due dates for everything, right? So we can start communicating expectations of when things should be completed by inside of this plan view. And I can link the dependencies so that I can see if there's any conflicts. Like I have a conflict here, which means I have to, hey, I need to push a date out, but now I broke something else. So now we got to go and negotiate resources and dates and stuff. Maybe we got to pull in our product managers and whatnot. But now you can start compromising with facts and data as opposed to just talking really, really loudly in a meeting. And so this, my friends, is what makes this thing kind of like super valuable and super special, because the plans is the only place where you can do this cross collaboratively, right? I think somebody here was saying, I can't do an issue type above my epic on team managed project teams. I'm stuck. Yeah. So unfortunately, if you are on a team managed project, you don't have issue types or word types above the epic. That is one of the reasons why my iOS one is just sitting here by itself. But I did find out that even though iOS is a team managed project, you still can in the plan do it. So Nav SMB, it might be worth creating a company managed project to put your initiatives in. And then in the plan, pull both your team managed project and your company managed project, and you should still be able to link a parent. When you open it, it won't show you the parent. No, it still will. Right. So even though I'm in a team managed project, as you can see here, team managed, even though I can't technically add a word type above the epic here, it just simply won't allow you in the space settings, right? It's just not a feature. When you add a word type, it has to be like a bug, story, or task. But if you go make a company managed one that is only your initiatives, you can still link them through the parent field and or through the plan. So little workaround for you, Nav, in case you weren't aware of that. Yes, and also we do have goals and projects. It's becoming a thing. I'm still not ready to jump into that ship yet. It's still not fully baked for me, in my opinion. But there is also the option of goals and using the home and projects and everything that's coming there. Okay. So yeah, so let's continue with where I was going. Okay. So yeah, so one of these are the key benefits of communication, right? So once you set up your plan, right? Once you're able to negotiate priorities, you're able to negotiate what's the most important thing, what's not the most important thing, then sprint planning becomes very trivial, because let me just push my changes in here real quick, right? When you go to your plan, when you go to start planning your what does your backlog look like? When you go to your backlog, all of the work, and actually let me show you on the UX one. I think my UX one's going to be better set up right now. When I go to my UX team and I go to my timeline view, look at the order of these epics. You see UT3, 2, 4, 5. When I look at my order here, 3, 2, and 4 and 5 are somewhere else, right? Maybe underneath one of these. No, these are all epics up here. When I look at my order of all of my epics across this prioritization carries over. And this is very, very important, right? Because the order of these items is now reflected or being reflected by the decisions I made in my plan, which is very, very important. Okay. But second, the most important thing is when you go to your backlog and you're looking at all the work in here and you're like, okay, what work should I work on? Well, your projects or your epics here, they're also going to be in the right order. So you can just simply start selecting the epic that's highest up and start working on that data. And so if I move over to my Android team one, I'm going to have more data on that one. But when I'm looking at my epics, these are in the correct order so that I only start working on the stories that are associated to an epic that is the most important. That way, when my team is like, okay, what should we work on? What should we plan for the sprint? You're only planning work that is important based on the grand prioritization of everything we did in the plans, right? And so it takes a lot of the guesswork of like, which story should we work on? Well, this becomes much more trivial because you've already done the prioritization and the ranking of importance in the plan. And so those epics are what's going to guide you so that when you have to determine which of all of these stories should I work on, it becomes super trivial because you're like, oh, well, let's just go with the epic that's the most important and work your way down. And so now you can negotiate and figure that out a lot easier because you're using ranked and prioritized information. And you can see how we start trickling down, right? From Jira Product Discovery, we had just ideas. We picked an idea that was important. That idea became all of this massive amount of work that we're eventually going to work on. And then as we update the statuses, right? As each one of these items get their statuses updated, then the Jira Product Discovery item gets updated as well. So when I go back to Jira Product Discovery and I look at my idea, and then I go back to my delivery tab, eventually this delivery tab starts telling me stuff. So as you can see here, I can see which work is completed and which work is in progress. And I can configure my delivery progress so I can show that, okay, maybe I shouldn't be doing this on the fly without having done this before. Apparently you can configure your progress bar. I did not know you can configure the progress bar, but the point still is you can see the status of these items at the idea level from what's coming in from Jira, from what we prioritize inside of Jira Product Discovery and what we prioritize inside of our plans, which ultimately trickle down to what you plan into your sprint. Okay, so you can see all of these correlations, how these are all related. Now, inside of Jira, once you do plan your sprint, right? And so once you essentially take work from your backlog and you move it into your sprint, you're going to do a couple of things. You're going to estimate the work, right? So you're going to say, okay, how many story points is this particular item worth? What's the level of effort, right? We should all know what story points are at this point. And then optionally, although I like to make this a requirement, I like to assign the stories to an individual to build accountability. Dan asked, does the epics panel view also rank in the same order? I used to manage, yes. So they do rank, right? So as long as you move them around, these will show up in the order that you have them in the plan. And so it's 4, 3, 2, 5. If I come over here, I have 4, 3, 2, 5. And if I move 5 to the top and I save my changes, so now it's 5, 4, 3, 2, right? And I come over here, see how it's still 4, 3. I'm going to refresh it, and then 5 is going to move up. And so when I move that and I go to my panel, you can see that it's 5, 4, 3, 2. If I turn on my panel, it's going to be in the same order, 5, 4, except you just got to expand to see the numbers. But yes, the prioritization from the plan carries into Jira, which is why I love this feature, because I can do all the strategic big picture thinking in the plan, and then I can start focusing on the execution with a lot more ease because I don't have to guess so much anymore. Dan says, I think the JPD progress bar is based on, yeah, probably. I needed to spend a little bit more time playing with that one. With 10 minutes that I have left, folks, I just didn't want to mess too much time, but definitely take a look at that. That progress bar in JPD will progress. Inside of the timeline, you also do, if I go back to my list view, you will also start to see progress, right? So as the children move to the right statuses here, you can see that this stuff will eventually move up. So I don't know what is going on with this. Implement. Why are you not up there? Oh, you know what? I have the wrong progress bar. I want to bring in a different progress. Here we go. Progress issue count. That's the one I want. Not days. I had the wrong one. Here we go. This is what I was expecting. So you can see here that as I move things to different statuses, my progress bar is filling up. And so this is pretty powerful the way this works. Okay. And then you can break down any one of these, and then again, the children of it start showing you what the progress actually is, and you can ultimately roll that up to that initiative level, which is what you were expecting to see in the Jira product discovery side. Okay, so a couple more tips here when you're planning your sprint. You are going to essentially estimate your work, right? What's the level of effort? And then assign it, and then you have some priorities. Once you put all of your level of effort, you do not want to start your sprint until you have estimated everything out. This is going to be what you want. Then and only then should you start your sprint. Now, once you start your sprint, your developers are off to the races. We are off to doing some awesome things. And the name of the game is to take the items from the farthest left column, and move it to the farthest most right column. And listen to me here, folks. If your team does not move an item from the farthest left column and make it all the way to the farthest right before you hit complete sprint, bad things are going to happen. Okay. Your work, if I were to close my sprint right now, right, and I'm actually going to do it for you. If I close my sprint right now, only one item got done. Even though I have a couple of items in progress and a few in to do, only one actually got done. And Jira's going to say, do you want to move it to the next sprint or do you want to move it to the top of the backlog? Most of the time you roll it over and you move it to the next sprint, but this is bad behavior because now you end up with, leftover carryover from the previous sprint. Not a good behavior to be in. So you want to push your team and you want to be on top of your team to make sure that as much work as humanly possible is moved from the left to the right. And we can facilitate this movement by by introducing Bitbucket into the mix. So this is where Bitbucket is going to come into play, because when branches are created, we can automatically move the stories from to do to in progress. When the work is completed, when the pull request is merged, we can automatically move it from in progress to done, right? And so we can build automations if and when we connect our stories with our code. And so let me show you that part next. And so in order to connect your story with your code, you simply open up your story, right? And you want to do this for stories that are in your sprint. You don't want to do this for things before your sprint because your team shouldn't be working on things that haven't been planned into your sprint. So you're doing this for all the work that is actually in your sprint. And so from here, we can go to the development section of our story and we can create a branch. Now you have a few options here. You can do the create the branch in Bitbucket, or you can go to GitHub. I have GitHub configured and actually it works a lot better than Bitbucket. So just don't tell Atlassian, but that'll be our little secret. And then we have the ability to just do the code if you wanted to do the actual code. But again, because this is Atlassian for startups, we want to focus on that Bitbucket cloud. We're going to click create branch in Bitbucket. I don't have my environment set up. Otherwise, I would have just taken that code and done it in like Visual Studio Code or something like that. Scrum Master Training says move it back to the backlog first and then decide if it needs to continue. Yeah, so there's never a pill that is the perfect answer. Both options are available to you. I normally just roll it because most teams have already started the work. But the proper way, if I had to pick, would be to split the story, which is I think more controversial than either path. But I personally split the story, take credit for what got done, because most of the time your development team does finish something. It's just not fully complete. And so I like to take credit for what got finished. And then that splitted story, that one goes back to the backlog so we can determine, okay, this is the work that's left over. This is like the true work that's left over, because I also don't feel comfortable with 90% of the story with a story point of 8 to get 90% completed, but you roll the whole thing into the backlog. And if you don't re-estimate it, it just doesn't make sense. So I'd rather take credit for that 90%, 80%, whatever got completed, and then make a new story for that delta, right? And so that's usually how I handle it. So we have somebody here, have to jump. Good session, like the YouTube setup and good production on these. I'll be back. Yes. So there will be a recording, Logan. So don't worry. I can't get them to stop rolling it over where I have seen one ticket go 20 or more sprints. Yeah, that is a big pet peeve, right? Once you start seeing plus 20, plus 15, things are getting serious over there, and somebody needs to help out. Okay, so back to this so we can start wrapping up this training here. And again, I do apologize. I'm going very, very fast, folks. This is 6 tools that I wanted to show you how they all work together. I want to reiterate, I have the entire course, 6 hours, a lot slower in my community. So if you're interested, it's free to join, right? So you can join completely free. But if you want to unlock the course, it will cost you 100 USD. It's a one-time payment. And so you can get the course here. As you can see here, there's a free course. All members have access to the Atlassian Builder Summit. but my Atlassian for Startups will be $100. It's completely free to join to become a member. There's no cost there. By joining, you will get the Atlassian Builder Summit completely for free. But if you want to get the in-depth 6-hour course, then you definitely want to purchase that separately. Okay. And so to wrap this stuff up, we're going to create our branch inside of Bitbucket. We're using our workspace that we've already created. And again, I walk you through all the steps on how to set up everything inside of that course. So you can definitely check out the course. We have a repository, our feature type. We could do a bug fix, hot fix, release, whatever you want. And then what branch are we forking or branching from? And then this is the important part, folks. If you're multitasking, this is the part you want to know. AT-7, this is the key. This corresponds to the task that we are about to create a branch for. This needs to be in the title of the branch, preferably at the beginning. I think I've seen it work anywhere in the text, but preferably at the beginning, you're going to ensure that you get your money's worth here. Okay, so make sure you put that key in the beginning, click on create, and then a branch is going to be created for us. Now we can check it out in SourceTree or in Visual Studio Code, do whatever you're going to do there, but we now have a branch. Now, unfortunately for me, for some reason, when I click refresh here, Jira doesn't behave correctly. For some reason, the whole Bitbucket integration is off by one. And so I'm actually going to fast forward to the next step just so that I can show you what this looks like once it's actually working. And so I'm going to go to my source code here. I'm going to go to the branch that we just created, AT-7. I'm going to edit a file that I have on here. And I'm going to do this edit live here, right? So I'm just going to add another line. This is for those that subscribed. And I'm going to commit inside of here, inside of my commit message. Again, at the beginning, I want to do my key, AT-7. I'm going to do a quick check. That's the right one. And then I'm going to click on commit. When I do that, that commit message and that commit itself is not going to be visible in my ticket inside of my story. So if I do a quick refresh, I am now going to see my branch. Well, eventually I'll see my branch. I'm going to go to one that already has it so you can see that I'm not lying. But you can see here that you get your branches and your commits that actually start showing up inside of your ticket. And this is very important, right? Because it helps your project managers, your scrum masters understand, okay, work is being done. Because what's very helpful here, right, is oftentimes teams will do this, right? There's a branch, work is being committed on, but the story is still to do. And that doesn't make sense. Oftentimes I see that the story is done, but there's no pull request. Like, how do you do your pull request, right? So you can't have this both ways, folks. They have to correlate, they have to match with each other. And this is why it's so important, especially to help your project manager out, is to do the commit, do the branch, do your pull request with the key so that Jira appropriately shows you how this is progressing. And in fact, when you do it all correctly, and I'm just going to switch over to my Jira, my own personal Jira, so you can see what this looks like, because ultimately, again, I couldn't get, remember I gave you a disclaimer at the beginning, I could not get the pull request to come through, right? But ultimately, when you do have a merged pull request, that information will be shown here, and you'll see that you'll see the status of the pull request. So you can see if it failed, you can see if it got merged, and then and only then would I expect a story to be like done, right? Because if the pull request is not merged, then how can the story be done, right? Because there's still a software development part that got left off. And so you want to be very careful here, and you want to be very mindful, and you want to use this to help you follow along with everybody. Okay. And then ultimately, when you're ready, right, when you're ready to like actually do the pull request, you can always just open up the story here. Where's my AT-7, right? We can go to the pull request button here, and then you'll hit the pull request, and then you'll get that. So we're going to stop here for that because I only have 5 minutes left, and I still want to show you Compass real quickly. So Compass is another tool that is part of the Atlassian for Startups. And this basically adds part of the developer experience to the whole technical process. And Compass serves two purposes. It takes all your components, it takes all your codes, and it does like a health and fitness of your code, right? So it's looking at how many bugs you have against code and things of that, right? And so there's a lot of information, a lot of context that we get in a scorecard from within Compass. But one of the reasons why I like to use Compass is the human element of it. So if you go and create a team inside of Compass and you go to CheckOps, you have the ability to, at a week's time, basically gauge your team. How are y'all feeling, right? What's the status of my team? Because a happy developer is going to be a productive developer. You don't want unhappy developers, because all they're thinking about is like getting new jobs. You don't want to be telling your developers that their jobs are going to be replaced by AI, because that's not going to be good for anybody, right? And so with your checkups, you can basically gauge your team, right? It's like a little mini retrospective that you do every week that basically allows them to kind of see how are we feeling, right? Like the code is hard. Jippity makes things a lot easier, but how are we all feeling here, folks, right? And that's what I really like about Compass, where you can do something like this. Now, again, you have scorecards that you can build so that you can see the health and status of the code that this team is responsible for. There's a couple of other things that you can do, like an on-call schedule, right? Like who's responsible for when that part of the code breaks. So Compass helps with all of that. But in general, that's all of the tools put together. And so, folks, I'm just going to show you one last thing, one last powerful thing, and then we are going to call it done. And that is back on the Loom side. You can embed Loom into Jira very, very easily. But the most important way that I've seen to be very helpful is that when I have a problem, right? If I document a problem, again, the picture's worth 1,000 words, right? But when you actually have a real problem, capturing it in video, right? The proof is in the pudding. And you can generate a QA steps here. No, not that one. We want to generate. Let me go back, not that one. Where was it? Bug report. Here we go. We can generate a bug report, right? Because this is going to be a problem, right? And so we have a Loom. We have an overview of what was discussed in that Loom, but more importantly, we have the steps to reproduce and the acceptance criteria. And we can just simply create in Jira. We can make this a bug. We can give it to a specific team. So I'm going to give it to my iOS team. And I'm going to say, you have a problem. And the bug was created with all of the fields filled out from that Loom. So this now becomes a bug that the team can take on. I don't know why it didn't come in as a bug, but this can now come in as a bug that the team can now plan into their sprint and they can work it out. But all the information, all the critical stuff that they need is inside of Loom. And so now this just becomes a story that you, or a bug again, that you can now plan to a sprint, that you can prioritize and do all the good stuff. So folks, that is basically it. Are Compass's on-call schedules integrated with JSM? That's a great question. So I want to say they are, because they're now focused or based on the team, right? And so when I look at my teams, it's the same teams. Oh boy, I don't even use teams. Where are my teams at? Here we go. It's the same teams that you had. And so as long as I see the team from that I was using, right? If I go to browse all teams and I see my Atlassian for Startups team, then it would be the same. But if it doesn't show up here, then it would not be the same. And the fact that it's not showing up might not be the same. No, it is right here. Yeah, they're right here. So yes, it should. That's a very big should, because ultimately the teams are now all interconnected. And so this should be the same. So if you set up the schedule, it should. Again, don't quote me on it. Maybe someone from Atlassian who's watching can let me know in the comments, but it should be the same. All right, folks, we are out of time. Give me a thumbs up if you like this. Let me know in the chat, what's the most valuable thing you learned? I want to remind you that we do have, I'm going to invite you all one more time. If you want a not so rushed, in-depth 6-hour version of this, $100 just for you. I'm going to crank this thing up to $500 after today. So if you do not get it today, this thing is going up to $499. Okay, folks. So if you want to get the entire sessions, right, in depth with way more context, way more commentary, this is a very, very in-depth, very well put together course that is available for $100 just today. So if you want the rest of this, pick it up today. Otherwise, it's going to be $500 tomorrow, and you're not going to be very happy if you have to pick it up at $500. So definitely pick it up today. Become a free member. You do get access to the Atlassian Builder Summit, which is 26 sessions that we hosted about 2 months ago now. You get the free copy of the Big Book of Atlassian. It's all in here. You get everything in here. Oops, not that one. Where is my book? My book should be on here. All right, I'll figure out where the book is, but I'm pretty sure you get the book. It's all in there, and so it's a lot of fun. But if you do want this course, this material, definitely join the ATIC community, folks. That is it. Appreciate you being here. I hope you found it useful. I certainly had a blast doing this, and we'll see you in the next one.